How's it going, young bloods? We're continuing to talk about the book of Galatians, and we're in chapter 4. We've been walking through this book chapter by chapter over the last several videos, so I'd encourage you maybe go back, take a look at the overview, and then 1, 2, and 3. And then we even spent a few minutes before all that, or a few videos before all that, looking at the Bible and the New Testament and the Old Testament, just really trying to get a picture of the Bible as a whole, and then how it speaks to us in its just every word that it has. Piper, if you read John Piper, I would encourage you to read John Piper. Man, his stuff is really good at just really exploring this. Words being, every individual word in the Bible being good and unique. And so just check those out. There should be some links below to some Desiring God stuff, which is who he writes with. So that being said, let's jump into chapter 4. So chapter 3, Paul was talking about how salvation is by faith alone in Jesus Christ alone. It's not by works, and that we grow in our Christianity. We become more like God as we continue to dwell on our faith in Him, as we continue to trust Him for everything, and as we don't really look at our own works as a means to betterment or improvement or being loved more or being blessed more by God. And so he continues that thought here in chapter 4. And so what he does is he takes and he says, just like a child doesn't understand what's going on until they get older, so is the case for us with the law. So for those who don't know really who Christ is, who haven't put their hope in faith, who haven't encountered the gospel and the freedom that brings, they are like a child who is under their parents' watch, and they don't understand why their parents make the rules that they do, and they can get aggravated and upset and think these rules are harsh and mean. But as you grow up into maturity, you start to look back on the rules your parents maybe put on you, and you go, man, that wasn't a bad rule. That was actually a really good rule. That kept me from hurting myself or burning myself or keeping me from really making these horrible mistakes. And then we might even continue to put those rules in place in our lives, not because our parents are making us, because we're adults now. We live on our own now. But we may see that as actually being good for us. And so Paul says that's the point of the law, is when we don't know it truly, when we haven't grown into maturity through the gospel of Jesus Christ, then we're going to see it as being harsh and mean and restrictive and hateful to us. But if we were to fall in love with Christ and put our hope and faith in Him, then we'd really understand what the law does. That it limits our brokenness because we realize for the first time just how broken we are. And then we may place ourselves individually, by the grace of God, in our own freedom. We may put ourselves back into some of those laws because we may think that would be actually good for us. And it would help us continue our love for God. And so Paul writes all of this, and in his talking about the law and grace, and in chapters 1 and 2, and even a little bit of 3, Paul is very aggressive in calling out those who would attach any kind of works as part of salvation or as part of looking good before God. I mean, he calls them out hard. And so at the end of chapter 4, Paul encourages them that he is not writing these things because he is mad at these people or because he is mean. He's doing this because he loves these people. So I got to be a teacher's assistant for a little over a year. And one of the things that was interesting is that most of the time when you would call out a student, they would have a tendency to tell you it's because you didn't like them or you were picking on them or you were being mean. But that wasn't the case at all. If I didn't like someone, the easiest thing for me to do would be to let them do whatever they wanted to do. Parents, good teachers, good people in places of authority, they put down rules and hold people accountable to those rules because they actually care about these people. And so that's what Paul's saying he's doing here, is he's writing these really harsh words about to us who would put too much weight on our works, not because he's being mean or doesn't like us or wants to be cruel, but because he does care about us, because he does love us, and he's wanting to show us how God really cares and loves us. Hope this is helpful. Please like, subscribe. Really appreciate it. Love you guys. God bless.